The village had been quiet for hours, the kind of silence that makes the air feel thick, almost alive. Yet tonight, something different trembled in the wind, a low, ragged groan that echoed across the valley, shaking the loose shutters on the cottages. No one had to look to know where it came from. Everyone knew the stories. Everyone feared the dragon. But fear had never been stronger than tonight. The dragon wasn't soaring above the clouds, casting shadows over the fields, or roaring fire into the sky. No, tonight it lay broken on the jagged rocks near the riverbed, its scales dulled, one massive wing bent at an unnatural angle. Its chest heaved with labored breaths, and wisps of smoke curled from its nostrils, faint as a candle's last flicker. From the safety of their homes, the villagers whispered and pointed. "It's dying," an old woman murmured. "We should leave it." Others nodded, grabbing torches and sacks. "If it's still alive tomorrow, it won't be by choice. Let it fade. Let it rot where it fell." Fear had stripped them of compassion. Fear had made cowards of all of them. All except one boy. Eli had watched from the edge of the forest, hidden among the twisted roots and shadows, gripping a weathered leather flask with both hands. He didn't know why his feet had carried him here. Curiosity? Courage? Or simply the pull of something he didn't understand, a presence in pain that called to him in a way no one else could hear. The dragon's eyes opened just as he stepped into the clearing, golden orbs flickering with a strange, mournful intelligence. Eli froze, heart hammering in his chest. The dragon's gaze was not angry. Not yet. But it was sharp, wary, and measured, the way a predator watches prey before deciding whether it's worth the effort. Eli's throat went dry. He had heard the legends, knew that dragons could crush a man with a single claw, roast a cottage in seconds. And yet, he couldn't move away. I have some water," he whispered, almost to himself. His hand trembled as he lifted the flask, the cool metal sweating in his palm. The dragon tilted its massive head, nostrils flaring, smoke curling faintly into the cold night. The groan in its chest was deeper now, almost human in its despair. For a moment, the boy imagined turning and running. He could already hear the villagers' voices calling him home, warning him to stay away. But something about the dragon's suffering rooted him in place. Every step backward felt wrong, every hesitation heavier than the last. Gathering courage, Eli knelt slowly, careful to show no sudden movements. He set the flask on the ground, nudging it toward the dragon's massive snout with a shaking hand. The creature sniffed, nostrils quivering, before lowering its head to lap at the water with a surprising gentleness. It hissed softly, a sound like metal scraping stone, and for a heartbeat, the boy saw something in its eyes. Gratitude? Relief? He couldn't be sure. Then came the first rumble of the villagers' approach, shouts and clanging metal echoing from the path above the rocks. Eli's pulse spiked. He looked up to see shadows moving, torches flickering. Some villagers were armed with axes and pitchforks. Fear flared in the dragon's gaze, and it stiffened, wings trembling. Eli froze, torn between the creature before him and the people he had always called his own. And in that moment, he realized something he had never dared to admit. No one else would stay. No one else would help. Except him. He swallowed hard, heart pounding like a drum in his chest, and whispered, I'm not leaving you." And as the first torchlight danced across the rocks, the dragon's great golden eyes locked with his, and in that shared silence, something unspoken passed between them, a bond forming, fragile but undeniable, in a world that had abandoned the dying. The first night was the hardest. Eli stayed by the dragon's side, his small frame pressed against the cold rocks as the creature shivered, its chest rising and falling with each ragged breath. He had never felt anything so immense, so alive yet so vulnerable. The dragon's golden eyes never left him, following each movement, each twitch of his fingers. He hadn't slept. Every rustle in the bushes made him flinch, every howl of the wind made his heart leap. Yet, despite the fear, he couldn't tear his gaze away from the dragon. It wasn't just awe that held him, it was something deeper, something unexplainable. Compassion, maybe. Or perhaps a stubborn, foolish sort of courage that refused to let another being die alone. The sun rose over the jagged cliffs, painting the valley in soft oranges and pinks. Eli felt the dragon stir, a low groan rumbling from deep within its throat. Its wing twitched. He froze. Slowly, cautiously, he reached toward the massive limb, and the dragon flinched, curling closer to the rocks as if expecting betrayal. "I'm not going to hurt you," he whispered. His voice trembled, small against the vastness of the creature before him. He moved a little closer, holding the flask of water in both hands. "Just drink." The dragon hesitated, eyes narrowing, but the heat of its breath on his face was nothing like fire. It was raw and human-like in its intensity, almost pleading. Then, after what felt like hours, it dipped its head, letting the water trickle onto its cracked, scaled lips. Eli let out a shaky breath. He didn't know if it understood him, didn't know if it could, but he talked anyway. "I'm Eli," he said. "My parents, they'd be scared of you. But I'm not." He paused, watching the rise and fall of its chest. "You're hurt. I want to help. That's all." For a long moment, the dragon did nothing. Then, slowly, it leaned closer, resting its head near Eli's knee. Its eyes softened, not fully trusting, not yet, but softened. Eli felt a warmth spread through him, a fragile victory in a world that had abandoned the creature. Over the next few days, he returned repeatedly. Every visit was a mixture of hope and terror. The villagers whispered from afar, sometimes daring to throw rocks or shout warnings, but he ignored them. He couldn't stop thinking about the dragon's pain. Every scrape, every shallow breath, every broken scale, it all demanded attention. Eli learned quickly. He used his small hands to remove shards of rock embedded in the dragon's limbs, applied poultices he made from herbs he remembered from his mother's garden, and always brought water, sometimes hiding bits of dried meat he'd stolen from the market. The dragon, in turn, began to respond. Its breathing eased, its golden eyes tracked him with less suspicion, and once, in a moment of terrifying majesty, it lifted its massive head and let out a soft, rumbling hum that vibrated through the stones beneath them. It was the first sound that felt like a thank you. But trust was a fragile thing. One afternoon, as Eli carefully dabbed a deep gash on the dragon's flank with a cloth, a sudden cry froze him in place. A band of hunters had come, moving quickly down the slope, their eyes wide with fear and greed. They had heard the stories, rumors of a dragon wounded and vulnerable, and they were determined to kill it. The dragon reacted immediately. Its wings spread, casting a shadow over the valley, a shadow that could flatten men in seconds. Smoke curled from its nostrils, and its low growl was a warning that made Eli's stomach twist. He looked at the hunters, then at the dragon. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, to escape while he could. But when he glanced at those golden eyes, the hesitation in them, he knew he couldn't. I won't let them hurt you," he whispered. The dragon lowered its head slightly, almost as if it understood. The hunters advanced, shouting, raising spears and axes. Eli stepped in front of the dragon, arms trembling, and shouted with all the courage he could muster. "Stop! Don't! Please!" They laughed, dismissing him as a foolish child. One of them raised an axe, aiming for the dragon's wing. Eli's heart lurched, and without thinking, he grabbed a long branch from the ground and swung it toward the attacker. The hunter stumbled back, startled, and in that instant, the dragon roared. It was a sound that shook the valley, a mix of fury and pain and life itself. Trees quivered, rocks tumbled down the slope, and the hunters froze, suddenly aware of what they faced. The dragon's wings unfurled fully, stretching toward the sky. Its golden eyes burned with a light Eli had never seen, and for a heartbeat, he felt its power, not just its size, but the intelligence, the awareness, the soul of a being that had survived countless ages. The hunters ran. Some fell, stumbling over rocks, others screamed as the dragon's roar chased them down the slope. Eli's legs trembled beneath him, but he stayed. He couldn't leave, not now. When the valley finally quieted, the dragon lowered its head, letting out a slow, shuddering exhale. Its body was still trembling, wings trembling from pain and adrenaline. Eli knelt beside it, touching the scales as gently as he could. "You're safe," he whispered. "I'm here." And in that moment, something shifted. The dragon nudged its massive head against his shoulder, a gesture so gentle it almost felt human. Eli felt tears sting his eyes. For the first time, he wasn't alone. The boy and the dragon, two creatures abandoned by the world around them, had found each other. Night fell again, and Eli stayed. He listened to the dragon's soft groans, the slow beat of its enormous heart. Somewhere deep in that darkness, in the space between fear and trust, a bond was forming. One neither the boy nor the dragon could yet name, but one that promised they would face whatever came next, together. Because in a world that had turned its back on the dying, the boy had chosen to stay. And the dragon had chosen to trust. Days passed, and the bond between Eli and the dragon deepened. The valley, once silent and foreboding, became a place of cautious routine. The dragon, its scales now glinting faintly under the sun, would lift its massive head when Eli approached, eyes alert but no longer filled with suspicion. Each day, the boy brought water, food, and small remedies he had learned from his mother's old herbal books. And every day, the dragon allowed him closer, leaning slightly, its trembling wings resting against the jagged rocks instead of twitching in fear. Eli had begun naming things in his mind. The jagged cliff they called home was the Ridge of Shadows, the river where he fetched water was the Silver Vein, and the dragon, well, the dragon didn't need a name yet. Names were for people. And dragons were more than that. Yet, even in moments of fragile peace, danger lurked. The villagers had not forgotten. Some whispered that the dragon had survived the night and that the boy who tended it must be cursed, or foolish. Others saw opportunity. A wounded dragon was easier to hunt. Rumors swirled, feeding fear like embers to a fire, and Eli knew it was only a matter of time before someone came armed with more than words. Still, he stayed. One morning, as mist curled along the Silver Vein, Eli approached with his usual offerings. The dragon stirred, lifting its head just enough to see him. Its breath misted in the cold air, and he could see the faint scars along its flanks where jagged rocks had cut deep into muscle and scale. "You're getting stronger," he said softly, kneeling to pour water into a hollow in the rock for the dragon to lap. "I think, you might be able to stand soon." The dragon sniffed at the water, then glanced at Eli. Its eyes seemed thoughtful, as if it knew something he did not. Days turned into a week. Eli learned to read the dragon's subtle cues, how it shifted weight from one leg to another, the way it flared its nostrils when the wind changed, the slow, cautious stretch of its broken wing. Each small improvement felt like victory, and yet, he dared not celebrate too loudly. He remembered the first night hunters had come, remembered the way fear could turn neighbors into enemies overnight. Then, on the 8th day, the moment came. The dragon shifted fully onto its legs. They trembled, wobbling under the weight of a life much larger than Eli's, but it was enough. It staggered, then stood, wings half raised, eyes wide and alert. Eli couldn't suppress a grin. "You did it," he whispered, touching the dragon's foreleg gently. "You're standing." The dragon lowered its head to him, a gesture of trust that made the boy's chest ache. For the first time, he could see the full grandeur of the creature. Its scales shimmered gold and bronze in the sun, its muscles rippled beneath the surface, and even the scars added to its majesty. But they had no time to bask in victory. From the Ridge of Shadows, a shout echoed, sharp and urgent. Eli froze. Then another came, followed by footsteps pounding against stone. The hunters were back. Not one, not two, but a dozen, or more. They had come better armed, ready to claim what they believed was theirs, the dragon, alive and weakened, but still dangerous. Eli looked at the dragon, whose wings twitched instinctively. "We can't let them take you," he said. "We have to fight, or hide." The dragon's eyes flicked toward the cliff edge, and for a heartbeat, Eli realized what it meant. It knew the terrain better than anyone. Together, they could use it to their advantage. As the hunters drew closer, Eli moved quickly, directing the dragon toward the narrow ridge that jutted precariously above the valley. The hunters shouted, waving spears and ropes, but the dragon didn't panic. It obeyed subtle gestures, movements Eli had begun to understand. A tilt of the head, a step forward, a rumble from deep in its chest. Halfway along the ridge, the dragon stopped. Its wings stretched wide, brushing against the wind. Eli climbed to its flank, holding onto the scales as the hunters gained ground. One hunter lunged, trying to grab him, but the dragon lashed its tail. A massive sweep sent the man tumbling down the slope, screaming as rocks and dirt cascaded after him. The others hesitated. Fear flickered in their eyes as the dragon's roar filled the valley once more. But Eli knew this wasn't enough. They needed to disappear, to survive until the dragon could fly again. "Come on," he whispered. "Follow me." He led the dragon toward a narrow cave opening half hidden by twisted vines and jagged rock. The dragon hesitated, then entered, slipping inside the darkness. Inside, the air was cool and damp, and Eli could hear the faint drip of water echoing through the stone. The hunters pounded the cliff above, shouting, but the cave's shadow swallowed the sound. The dragon lowered itself onto the floor, wings folding around it like a protective shell. Eli knelt beside it, heart racing. "We're safe, for now," he said, though his voice betrayed his uncertainty. Inside the cave, the boy and the dragon shared a quiet moment. Eli's hands moved over the dragon's scars, feeling the heat from its body, the slow pulse beneath its scales. "You trusted me," he whispered. "And I trust you." The dragon's eyes closed briefly, a gesture of calm, and Eli felt the weight of their bond. It was no longer just survival. It was companionship, a fragile alliance in a world that had turned away from the magnificent and the misunderstood. Night fell, and the cave grew colder. Eli huddled against the dragon's massive side, the warmth from its body seeping into him. He thought of the villagers, of the hunters, of the countless dangers outside. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid, not entirely. He had someone beside him who had been abandoned like he had been. And in the quiet of that hidden cave, he realized something powerful. Maybe they could survive this world together. And maybe, just maybe, they could show everyone that fear wasn't the only way to see the world. The air was heavy with the scent of rain and earth as Eli and the dragon emerged from the cave at dawn. The valley below was shrouded in mist, giving the jagged cliffs and twisted trees an eerie, dreamlike quality. The dragon's wings, now fully healed, stretched toward the sky, the sun glinting off its golden scales. Eli's heart pounded in his chest. Today, the dragon would attempt something it hadn't done in weeks, fly. But danger never slept. From the ridge above, the hunters had returned, braver this time, emboldened by their numbers. They had spread through the valley, shouting, banging metal, trying to flush the dragon out of hiding. Eli's stomach twisted as he saw them, each man armed and determined, none of them willing to leave without their prize. The dragon's head swung toward him, eyes searching. Eli held up a hand. "We can't fight them all," he whispered, though his voice trembled. "We need a plan, we need to be smart." The dragon lowered itself slightly, wings trembling in anticipation, but it understood. It had learned from Eli, it had learned trust. Together, they could face what lay ahead. Eli climbed onto the dragon's back, gripping the rough scales with white-knuckled hands. The hunters shouted, waving ropes and spears, but the dragon's roar rolled across the valley like thunder. Rocks tumbled down the cliffs as if the earth itself was warning them away. Yet some hunters pressed forward, driven by greed and fear, and Eli knew they had only seconds before confrontation turned deadly. "Hold on," he whispered. The dragon flexed its wings and leapt. Wind roared past Eli's ears as they soared over the ridge, the valley unfolding beneath them like a painted map. The hunters faltered, unable to follow. Some tried climbing higher cliffs, but the dragon's sheer size and speed kept them at bay. Then came the first test. A lightning storm began to churn above the valley, sudden and violent, illuminating the jagged peaks with harsh flashes. Rain lashed against Eli's face, cold and stinging, and the dragon faltered in midair, wobbling dangerously. Eli's heart nearly stopped. "Steady," he shouted, gripping the scales with all his strength. "You can do this." The dragon's wings beat harder, muscles rippling under its golden scales. Lightning struck nearby, splintering a tree that fell into the valley with a deafening crash. The hunters froze, terrified of the storm's wrath, their courage faltering against nature's raw power. Eli felt a strange thrill as the dragon regained control, soaring higher into the storm, rising above the danger. Hours passed like this, a perilous dance of survival and trust. Eli guided the dragon toward a narrow canyon hidden by clouds and mist, a place where no hunter could follow. The dragon, now fully aware of its strength, obeyed subtle gestures, diving and twisting to avoid falling rocks, dodging lightning strikes with astonishing agility. Each movement solidified the bond between boy and dragon, a silent communication deeper than words. At last, they landed on a plateau above the valley, drenched but safe. Eli slid from the dragon's back, knees shaking from adrenaline. The dragon lowered itself beside him, wings folding with a soft thud against the rocks. Rain dripped from its scales, and steam rose from its body as it exhaled, a comforting warmth in the cold, stormy air. Eli knelt beside the dragon, brushing water from its scales. "You did it," he said softly. "You flew, you survived." The dragon nudged him gently with its massive snout, a gesture that felt almost human. Eli smiled through the exhaustion and relief. For the first time, he truly believed they could survive anything, as long as they faced it together. But safety was fleeting. From the valley below, a distant shout carried upward. A lone hunter had survived, climbing toward the plateau. Eli's stomach tightened. He could see the man waving a spear, trying to signal others. The dragon's eyes flicked toward the valley. Eli understood immediately, they weren't out of danger. "Not yet. We have to move," Eli whispered. "Further, higher, somewhere they can't reach us." The dragon gave a low rumble, then flexed its wings, ready to take flight again. Eli climbed onto its back, heart racing, as the storm began to ease slightly. Together, they rose above the plateau, into the clouds, leaving the valley, and the hunters, behind. As they soared, Eli felt a surge of exhilaration, fear, and awe. The dragon beneath him was more than a beast, it was a companion, a protector, and a friend. And for the first time, Eli realized something he had never dared to hope: they could be free. Yet freedom came with a cost. They had no home, no allies, and the world below would not forgive what it feared. Every valley, every village, every hunter could one day find them again. Eli's mind raced with questions he couldn't answer. How far could they fly? How long could the dragon heal fully? And what would they do if someone caught up to them before they were ready? The dragon dipped into a hidden canyon, its golden scales blending with the mist. Eli clutched tightly, feeling the rhythm of its heartbeat beneath him. Somewhere deep inside, he knew their journey was only beginning. The storm had passed, but the real test, the world itself, was still ahead. And in that moment, high above the valley, Eli understood the truth he had been avoiding. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing to face it anyway, no matter the odds. He tightened his grip and whispered into the wind, "We're in this together, all the way." The dragon's wings stretched wide, catching the light of the rising sun. The world below seemed small and distant, but Eli's heart knew one thing: as long as they trusted each other, nothing could stop them. Not hunters. Not fear. Not even the storms. Together, they would face whatever came next. The morning air was crisp and electric as Eli and the dragon perched on the edge of a high cliff. Below, the valley stretched like a patchwork quilt of green and brown, dotted with the remnants of the village that had once abandoned them. The dragon flexed its wings, golden scales glinting in the rising sun, and Eli felt a thrill of anticipation course through him. Today would be different. Today, the world would see what they were capable of. The dragon shifted, muscles rippling under its now perfect scales. Its eyes met Eli's, and he saw something there that went beyond trust. There was understanding, intelligence, and the quiet determination of a creature ready to reclaim its power. Eli placed his hand gently on its massive snout. "You're ready," he whispered. "We're ready." For weeks, they had hidden, flown through storms, and evaded hunters. But Eli knew this day would not come without a test. Word had spread through the villages, rumors of a dragon surviving the cliffs, protected by a boy. Many came, some out of fear, some out of curiosity, and some with weapons. From the valley below, torches flickered like a river of fire. Men, armed and trembling, gathered at the edge of the cliffs, shouting and throwing stones. Eli's heart clenched. The hunters had returned, stronger and more desperate than ever. But the dragon did not flinch. It was no longer a wounded creature, it was a force of nature, healed and resolute. Eli climbed onto its back, gripping the scales firmly. "We can't hurt them, unless we have to," he said, more to steady himself than the dragon. "We're showing them who we are, not just what you can do." The dragon exhaled, a slow stream of warm air that rattled the stones beneath them. Then, in unison, they leapt. Wings unfurled, catching the wind, and the boy and dragon rose into the sky, golden against the pale dawn. The villagers below gasped. Fear twisted their faces, but all followed quickly. None had ever seen anything move with such grace and power. From the cliffs, one hunter, bolder than the rest, raised a spear. The dragon's roar shattered the morning silence, echoing across the valley like rolling thunder. The hunter froze, spear trembling in his hands, as the dragon's wings flared wide, casting a shadow that swallowed him whole. Then, with a single, precise sweep of its tail, the spear was sent flying into the distant trees. The other villagers wavered, unsure whether to advance or flee. Eli leaned forward, placing a hand against the dragon's scales. "It's over if we make it over," he whispered. With a beat of its wings, the dragon soared higher, gliding over the valley. The villagers fell silent, watching, mouths agape, as the creature's golden scales caught the sunlight, shimmering like molten metal. And for the first time, Eli realized something extraordinary: they were no longer victims of fear or misunderstanding. They were a symbol of courage and trust. Hours passed as the boy and dragon circled above the valley, unchallenged. The hunters, beaten back by awe and fear, retreated, their shouts replaced by whispers of wonder. Eli laughed, a short, incredulous sound, leaning against the dragon's massive neck. "We did it," he said. "We survived. We're free." But freedom was not just about escape. It was about choice. Eli reached down, gently stroking the dragon's wing, feeling the raw strength beneath the skin. "We could hide forever," he said. "Or, we could show them that you're not a monster. That kindness is stronger than fear." The dragon rumbled low in agreement, dipping slightly in the wind as if acknowledging his words. Then, with a powerful beat of its wings, it rose higher, spiraling above the valley, then down toward the village in a controlled, graceful swoop. The villagers scattered at first, then froze as the dragon landed lightly in the clearing, wings folding elegantly, head lowered in a gesture of peace. Eli dismounted, heart pounding. He stepped forward, hands raised in a calm, human gesture. "See," he said. "You feared it, but it's not here to hurt you." The villagers stared, wide-eyed. Children peeked from behind doorways, curious and trembling. Slowly, an old woman stepped forward, eyes softening as she studied the dragon's golden gaze. A young man lowered his weapon, uncertain, and then another followed. One by one, fear began to give way to awe, and awe gave way to understanding. The dragon lowered its massive head, nudging Eli gently, as if to say, "We faced the world together, and we chose trust." Eli knelt beside it, tears stinging his eyes, feeling the warmth of its body beneath his hands. "You saw me when no one else did," he whispered. "And I saw you. Always." A hush fell over the village as the sun rose fully, bathing the dragon and the boy in light. For the first time, the valley felt alive not with fear, but with the possibility of something greater. Courage, trust, and compassion had forged a bond stronger than any weapon. The dragon let out one last low rumble, a sound that seemed almost like laughter, almost like a sigh of relief. Then, with a powerful flap of its wings, it lifted Eli once more, soaring above the cliffs, above the valley, into the endless sky. Together, they flew, leaving behind the world that had once abandoned them, but carrying with them the lesson that fear could be faced, and kindness could conquer it. Eli clung tightly, looking down at the shrinking village below. His heart swelled with pride, love, and an unshakable sense of hope. The dragon had healed, not just in body, but in spirit, and so had he. They were no longer two lonely beings abandoned by the world. They were something new, an unbreakable bond soaring through the sky, a force no fear could ever touch. And as the wind rushed past them and the horizon stretched endlessly ahead, Eli knew one thing with certainty. Together, they were unstoppable. The world below had turned away once, but up here, in the vast open sky, boy and dragon were free, bound by courage, trust, and an unexpected friendship that would last forever.